King Charles and Queen Camilla are coming to North America. There's a great deal of conjecture, interest in whether this will mean a reunion with Harry. Is that on the cards, Kinsey?
When hell freezes over, will that happen? I don't think King Charles wants anything to do with Prince Harry, who has never found a camera and a microphone he hasn't complained about his relatives to. I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
King Charles has issued a royal ultimatum: divorce Meghan Markle immediately, or be forever cut off from the family. This isn't just another royal scandal, it's a dramatic showdown that could change the monarchy forever. Why has the king drawn this hard line? What does this mean for Harry, Meghan, and the future of the royal family? Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking reasons behind this explosive decision, the family fallout, and the personal cost that no one saw coming. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It began with a whisper inside Buckingham Palace, an almost unthinkable idea spoken behind closed doors, away from press, from Parliament, and even from family ears. But now, that whisper has grown into a roar. Sources close to the inner sanctum of the British monarchy claim that King Charles III, in a private and unequivocal conversation, issued an ultimatum that could shatter the royal family's fragile facade. Prince Harry must divorce Meghan Markle, or face permanent exile from the House of Windsor. No cameras captured the moment. No official statements were issued. Yet behind the curtain of royal protocol, the clash between duty and defiance has reached a boiling point. The royal family, once defined by unity and stoicism, is now tearing itself apart under the strain of scandal, betrayal, and a personal decision with global implications. And at the center of it all stands King Charles, a monarch burdened with the legacy of a fractured crown and the growing realization that the stability of the institution may now hinge on a brutal, deeply personal choice. The world has watched the Sussex saga unfold like a tragic opera. First came the fairy tale wedding, a transatlantic romance that promised to modernize the monarchy and inject it with relevance and diversity. But the dream curdled into disillusionment. Accusations flew from racism and media abuse to betrayals and family rejection. Prince Harry, once the beloved rogue of the royal family, became a divisive figure, abandoning his royal role and moving to California with Meghan Markle to start anew. The world was divided. Some called it brave, others called it reckless. But what has unfolded since has done more than just shake the palace walls. It has pierced the very foundation of the monarchy's identity. Books were written. Bombshell interviews aired. Private family feuds became public entertainment. And in the heart of it all, King Charles remained largely silent until now. According to royal insiders, the king has broken his silence not with a public decree, but with a sharp-edged ultimatum behind palace doors. And the consequences of this ultimatum are nothing short of historic. This is not just a family dispute. This is a test of the monarchy's resilience. A man born to rule is now confronted with a personal crisis that carries constitutional weight. Can a monarch demand the dissolution of a marriage? Can loyalty to crown supersede love? And what happens when a son refuses to obey a father who wears the crown? Over the course of this investigation, we will unravel the layers of this royal rupture. We'll take you deep into the palace corridors, where advisors whisper and alliances shift like shadows on stone. We'll examine the pressures that led to this ultimatum, the reactions from those closest to the throne, and what this all means for the future of the House of Windsor. The stakes are not just personal, they are historic. Our story begins with a single moment. One room, two men, and a decision that could define the fate of the British monarchy in the 21st century. The meeting reportedly took place in Clarence House, a royal residence that has long served as King Charles's private base of operations. According to multiple accounts from individuals with knowledge of palace movements, the meeting was scheduled as part of what insiders are calling a reassessment summit, a discreet yet serious effort to recalibrate the family's internal strategy regarding the Sussexes. On the guest list, the king himself, a senior advisor from the Privy Council, and Prince Harry, invited under the pretext of a private father-son reconciliation. But the mood, sources say, was anything but reconciliatory. Charles had reached a breaking point. Months of behind-the-scenes embarrassment had culminated in a public atmosphere of dysfunction. The Netflix docuseries, the memoir, the speaking engagements. Each new interview, each thinly veiled jab at the institution, added another crack to the monarchy's foundation. Public trust was wavering. International opinion was shifting. And within the palace, the tone had changed from disappointment to strategy. According to a well-placed source in the royal household who requested anonymity due to the sensitivity of the matter, King Charles made it clear that the damage can no longer be absorbed without a consequence. The phrase used behind those walls was not a request. It was a directive: divorce or departure. The source described the tone as final and controlled, but unmistakably firm. Prince Harry, reportedly stunned, responded not with immediate acceptance or denial, but with disbelief. This was not just about Meghan. It was about the principle of autonomy, about being a son, not a subordinate. And yet, in that moment, he was both, a man torn between the woman he loves and the dynasty that shaped his identity. The British monarchy has long operated on the principle of discretion. Scandals, when they occur, are either buried or turned into cautionary tales. But what happens when the scandal won't go away? When it moves to California, signs with Netflix, and gives televised interviews to Oprah Winfrey. The palace may have remained silent for years, but now that silence has fractured under the weight of its own consequences. There is a growing belief among constitutional scholars and royal watchers that this is not just about Meghan Markle, but about precedent. If Harry continues to operate outside of royal protocol while still benefiting from royal titles and privileges, what message does that send to future generations? What happens to the monarchy when its own members flout its traditions without consequence? And who, if not the king, has the authority to draw the line? As we'll explore in the coming chapters, this ultimatum is more than just a royal family dispute. It is a litmus test for how far a modern monarchy can bend before it breaks. The British press, as expected, has been ablaze with speculation. Though the palace refuses to comment officially, leaks have been emerging through traditional royal reporters and strategically placed anonymous sources. Some headlines have referred to a decisive confrontation. Others hint at legal consequences and royal decrees not seen since the days of Queen Victoria. Even within Parliament, whispers of reform have begun circulating, talks of legislative moves to limit or strip royal privileges in cases of non-compliance or defamation of the crown. And yet, amidst all this speculation, there remains a deeply human story. A father confronting the legacy he will leave behind. A son caught between loyalty and love. A wife whose mere presence has divided nations. And a monarchy that, more than ever, feels like it is standing at the edge of a blade. What comes next will not just shape headlines, it will shape history. Yet, even as the British public and global media race to decode the silence from Buckingham Palace, the gravity of this development is most deeply felt not on television or in the tabloids, but in the lineage of royal tradition itself. This is a monarchy built not only on ceremony but on control of image, control of narrative, control of emotion. From Queen Elizabeth's famously stoic resolve during national crises to the carefully orchestrated public lives of royal heirs, discretion has long been the monarchy's invisible crown. But Harry's marriage to Meghan Markle broke the mold in every conceivable way. She was not from the aristocracy. She was an American actress, biracial, divorced, and unapologetically modern in her views. For millions, she represented progress and inclusion. For others within the royal establishment, she embodied a threat, an unpredictable variable that refused to conform to centuries of unspoken rules. At first, the palace tried to adapt. There were press releases, tours, outreach programs, and symbolic gestures designed to showcase unity. But beneath the polished exterior, tension simmered. The media frenzy, fed by both tabloid obsession and internal leaks, grew into a wildfire. Meghan spoke of feeling isolated, unsupported, even targeted from within. Harry, haunted by the memory of his mother's death and fearful of history repeating itself, chose to step away. What followed was unprecedented. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle did not just leave the royal fold, they became vocal critics of it. The Oprah interview revealed wounds that had never healed. Allegations of racism, neglect, and emotional cruelty were broadcast across the globe. For the first time in modern memory, a senior royal accused the institution, not just the press, of active harm. King Charles, newly ascended and eager to project unity in the wake of Queen Elizabeth's death, initially took the approach of dignified silence. But over time, that silence began to look less like grace and more like vulnerability. Every new move by the Sussexes, whether a podcast, documentary, or memoir, seemed to challenge the legitimacy and restraint of the monarchy. And still, no clear boundary was set. That changed, reportedly, in a single afternoon. According to multiple royal correspondents with ties to palace staff, The conversation between King Charles and Prince Harry lasted over an hour and was punctuated by long silences and heavy pauses. One insider described it as a reckoning years in the making. The king is said to have framed the ultimatum not as a punishment, but as a necessity. The monarchy, he argued, cannot sustain itself when its own members publicly contradict its values and then expect to retain its benefits. Your choice is simple, Charles reportedly said. Return to the family on our terms, or live outside it without its name. This, of course, is not the first time exile has been weaponized within royal circles. History is littered with similar schisms. One of the most notorious examples was Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson, a divorced American socialite. In doing so, he triggered a constitutional crisis that rocked the empire and ultimately reshaped the royal line of succession. In exile, Edward was never again allowed to fully reintegrate. The royal family kept him at arm's length, despite his pleas for reconciliation. To royal historians, the parallels are glaring. Once again, a member of the royal family is being asked to choose between love and legacy. Once again, a foreign-born spouse is at the center of the controversy. And once again, the monarchy is being forced to decide how far it will bend before it begins to break. But unlike the abdication of Edward VIII, today's situation is unfolding in the full glare of 24/7 media. Social media posts, YouTube commentary, and TikTok breakdowns have transformed the royal family into content fodder. The institution that once communicated in carefully curated broadcasts and press releases is now under constant, relentless scrutiny from a public that demands transparency. It is into this environment that King Charles now attempts to reassert control, not just of the family, but of the narrative. The reported ultimatum was not just a private plea, it was a line in the sand. If Harry continues to choose independence over allegiance, the palace will no longer tolerate the ambiguity. There will be consequences that could include the stripping of royal titles, financial sanctions, and formal disassociation from all royal functions. And what of Meghan? According to some sources, the king's directive extended explicitly to her. The Crown's concern, insiders say, is not only Harry's behavior but the influence of his wife. Charles is said to believe that as long as Meghan remains at Harry's side, any reconciliation is impossible. For the king, this is not a vendetta, it is a calculation. The monarchy's survival, in his view, requires purification. And that means removing the source of the chaos. Reactions within the royal household have reportedly been divided. Prince William, who has maintained a frosty distance from his brother since the Oprah interview, is said to support the king's hardline stance. Palace insiders claim that William has privately voiced frustration at Harry's continued use of royal titles while openly criticizing the institution. Other royals, however, including some of Charles's closer cousins, are said to be more ambivalent. Some worry that forcing a public rupture could backfire, alienating younger generations who view Harry and Meghan as relatable, even admirable. There are also whispers that Queen Camilla, while sympathetic to Charles's burden, urged caution, fearing that a forced divorce might not be seen as an act of leadership, but of cruelty. Meanwhile, public opinion remains sharply divided. A recent poll conducted by the Royal Observer Institute shows that 48% of respondents support the idea of Harry losing his titles if he refuses to align with royal expectations, while 42% believe the monarchy should prioritize reconciliation over punishment. Only 10% remain undecided. Among British citizens aged 18 to 30, however, the numbers tell a different story. 64% of younger respondents believe the monarchy has mishandled its relationship with Harry and Meghan. They cite a need for modernization, transparency, and empathy. Many argue that trying to force a divorce would only reinforce the monarchy's image as rigid and emotionally detached. This generational divide is not lost on Charles. Though a monarch steeped in tradition, he is also a man who spent decades waiting for the throne. Observing, adapting, and sometimes challenging the rules himself. His first marriage to Princess Diana ended in scandal and tragedy. His long relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles endured decades of public hostility. He knows what it means to be scrutinized, vilified, and misunderstood. But now, he faces his most difficult test, not as a prince in waiting, but as a king in power. Can he truly separate personal pain from royal duty? Can he save the crown without losing his son forever? These are the questions that will haunt the chapters to come. Because this is no longer a matter of perception, it is a matter of principle. and the man who holds the crown has made his decision. The message was clear. The conditions are set. The future of the monarchy may now depend on whether Prince Harry is willing to pay the price for the life he's chosen. As the world waits for answers, one thing is certain: silence is no longer an option. The chessboard has been set, the first move made. What comes next could redefine not just a family, but a nation. This is only the beginning. The story behind the ultimatum between King Charles and Prince Harry is shrouded in layers of secrecy, whispers, and guarded conversations that only the closest palace insiders have dared to reveal. It was not a public decree handed down in the glare of cameras or the pages of tabloids. Rather, it was a private confrontation, a moment frozen in time that, according to those with knowledge of the meeting, changed the course of royal history. This chapter delves into the intimate details of that conversation. How did it come to be? What led King Charles to take such a drastic step? And what was the atmosphere like when the two men, father and son, faced off over the fate of the monarchy and their fractured family? It began months earlier, when tensions between Harry and the palace were already at a boiling point. After years of estrangement following the Sussexes' step back from official duties in their explosive interviews, King Charles had maintained a posture of restraint. He had sent envoys, attempted discreet negotiations, and hoped that time would heal wounds. But each public statement, each new revelation, each memoir chapter only deepened the divide. The palace grew increasingly concerned that Harry was using the royal platform for personal gain and criticism, eroding the very institution he was born into. King Charles, for all his patience, began to realize that more subtle measures would not suffice. Sources say the decision to confront Harry personally was driven by a mix of duty, desperation, and a desire to protect the monarchy's future. Rather than send a formal letter or issue a statement through intermediaries, Charles wanted to speak with Harry directly. A meeting was arranged at a discreet location, far from the prying eyes of the press and royal staff. The setting was uncharacteristic for such high-stakes talks. According to reports, it was a modest, private room within a royal estate, stripped of ceremony and grandeur. No cameras, no crowds, no official observers, just two men confronting a deeply personal and public crisis. Charles reportedly opened the meeting by acknowledging the pain and disappointment that had colored their relationship in recent years. He spoke of his hopes for reconciliation, the importance of family, and the burden of legacy that both shared. But soon, the tone shifted. In a voice described as both firm and weary, the king laid out what he called the inevitable choice. He told Harry that the monarchy could no longer tolerate the contradictions between public loyalty and private dissent. If Harry wished to retain his royal titles and privileges, he would need to cease all activities that disparaged or undermined the institution, publicly and privately. Most strikingly, Charles insisted that Meghan's presence complicated the situation. As long as she remains by your side, the wounds within the family will fester, he said. The king made it clear that Harry would have to either sever ties with Meghan or face the full consequences of exile from the royal family. The implication was unmistakable: divorce or disinheritance. Harry, sources say, listened in silence for much of the exchange. When he finally spoke, his words were measured but resolute. He acknowledged the pain on both sides but refused to consider a separation from Meghan. For Harry, the marriage was more than a union. It was a partnership grounded in shared values and mutual support. The conversation reportedly ended without resolution. Both men left the room knowing that a formal deadline would soon be set. The king's message was clear: comply or be cut off. But what fueled Charles's conviction that such a harsh measure was necessary? And how did Harry's past experiences shape his response? To understand, one must look back at the history of royal family conflicts and how precedent weighs on the current crisis. Exile and disinheritance are not new tactics within monarchies, but their application in the 21st century raises questions about tradition versus modernity. Charles's decision reflects a calculation that the monarchy's survival depends on clarity of loyalty and unity of purpose. In his view, tolerating public dissent from within the family threatens the institution's credibility. It is a delicate balance between preserving heritage and adapting to an evolving world. Meanwhile, Harry's steadfast refusal to separate from Meghan reveals a commitment to personal principles over royal protocol. For him, the monarchy must change or lose relevance, compliance with. This confrontation thus symbolizes a deeper conflict between old and new, duty and freedom, institution and individuality. It is a collision of identities that touches not only the personal lives of those involved, but the very fabric of the British monarchy. In the chapters that follow, we will explore the implications of this ultimatum, from the legal battles over titles and finances to the public fallout and global reactions. We will hear from experts in royal history, law, and media, and dissect the impact on the monarchy's future. But for now, the secret meeting between King Charles and Prince Harry stands as a pivotal moment, a reckoning that has set in motion a chain of events few could have predicted. The question remains, will Harry choose allegiance to tradition or allegiance to love? And how far will the monarchy go to enforce that choice? The weight of this confrontation cannot be overstated. For decades, the British monarchy has been viewed as an institution that upholds tradition, decorum, and continuity. Yet beneath the polished public image lies a family dynamic filled with personal struggles, divergent views, and, as this moment reveals, profound fractures. One royal expert remarked, "This isn't simply about titles or privileges. It's a battle for identity, between what it means to be a member of the royal family and what it means to live authentically in the modern world." The king's demand forced Harry to confront his loyalties in a way that no public statement or interview could ever achieve. Moreover, the ultimatum underscores how Meghan Markle's presence has become a lightning rod within the royal circle. From her first public appearances to the controversies that followed, Meghan has challenged centuries-old norms, questioned established protocols, and brought to light uncomfortable truths about race, media intrusion, and mental health. King Charles's insistence that Harry choose between his wife and his royal heritage reflects the enduring tension between tradition and change. What made this moment especially dramatic was the timing. It came at a period when the royal family was navigating a series of crises: the death of Queen Elizabeth II, political upheaval, and growing public scrutiny. For Charles, asserting his authority and preserving the monarchy's stability was paramount. For Harry, the stakes were deeply personal, maintaining a sense of self and protecting the family he had built outside the palace walls. The private nature of the meeting also adds layers of complexity. No official statement was released, no public acknowledgement made. Yet leaks and rumors soon followed, stirring global speculation. Media outlets debated the significance of the ultimatum, fans of the Sussexes reacted with shock and sympathy, and royalists expressed concern about the monarchy's future. Some palace insiders believe that this private confrontation was the last chance for reconciliation. They argue that the king hoped to avoid a public rupture by giving Harry an ultimatum in confidence. But Harry's decision to remain steadfast made the gulf unbridgeable. This chapter also sheds light on the emotional toll this confrontation took on both men. It is said that Charles, a father torn between duty and love, struggled with the decision but ultimately felt compelled to act for the institution he serves. Harry, facing the possibility of exile from the family he once called home, stood firm on his principles. What does exile mean in this context? It is not merely a loss of titles or financial support. It is a symbolic severing from a heritage, a network, and a legacy. For Harry, it is a painful choice, but one that aligns with his vision of freedom and authenticity. The ramifications of this confrontation extend beyond the immediate family. They influence public perception of the monarchy, affect diplomatic relations, and resonate with global conversations about tradition, change, and individual rights. In examining this pivotal moment, it becomes clear that the ultimatum was not an impulsive act but a calculated response shaped by history, personal relationships, and the pressures of modern monarchy. It marks a crossroads from which there may be no turning back. As the story unfolds, the true impact of this secret ultimatum will come into sharper focus. The consequences for Harry, Meghan, and the royal family at large will ripple through time, shaping the narrative of the British monarchy for years to come. The royal family's history is a tapestry woven with moments of grandeur and scandal, loyalty and betrayal, unity and separation. The concept of exile or enforced divorce within the British monarchy is not new. It carries centuries of precedent, each episode layered with its own drama and consequence. To fully understand the magnitude of King Charles's ultimatum to Prince Harry, it is essential to explore these historical precedents and how they mirror or diverge from today's conflict. Exile within royal families often served as a tool to maintain political stability or assert control. In times when monarchs faced threats, both internal and external, banishing a troublesome relative was a method to neutralize dissent without bloodshed. One of the most famous examples is that of King Henry VIII, whose turbulent marriages and conflicts led to significant upheaval within the Tudor dynasty. Henry VIII's reign was marked by his relentless pursuit of a male heir, which led to multiple marriages, divorces, and executions. His wife and Boleyn's fall from favor culminated in her execution, but it was more than personal drama. It was a political statement about royal authority and the limits of personal choice. Though this occurred centuries ago, the echoes of a monarch's ability to dissolve marriage bonds under threat of exile or death still resonate within royal culture. Moving forward, the exile of the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII, offers one of the most direct parallels to Harry's situation. Edward VIII famously abdicated the throne in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee deemed unacceptable by the royal establishment. His abdication was not merely a personal choice, but a constitutional crisis that shook the monarchy to its core. The Duke of Windsor's exile was both literal and symbolic. Though he retained his title, he was effectively removed from the line of succession and lived the remainder of his life largely outside Britain's royal circles. His marriage, which challenged established norms, led to his exclusion, highlighting the monarchy's unwillingness to accept certain unions that threatened its image or stability. In many ways, Prince Harry's situation echoes the Duke of Windsor's story. Both men faced dilemmas that pitted personal happiness against royal duty. Both involved marriages that unsettled the royal status quo. The difference lies in the context of the 21st century, where public opinion, media scrutiny, and social values have shifted dramatically. The royal family's approach to divorce has also evolved over time. While once seen as scandalous and grounds for ostracism, modern times have witnessed a more accepting attitude. However, the institution remains cautious about divorces that attract negative publicity or suggest internal discord. For example, Princess Diana's divorce from Prince Charles in the 1990s was unprecedented in its public exposure and emotional intensity. Though it did not result in exile, it forever changed the public's perception of the royal family and highlighted the challenges of balancing private lives with public roles. In Harry's case, the prospect of a forced divorce is fraught with emotional and political implications. It is not merely a personal matter, but a reflection of how the monarchy seeks to manage its image and authority in a rapidly changing world. Forcing a divorce as a condition to retain royal status is a rare and severe measure, underscoring the stakes involved. Beyond British history, European monarchies have witnessed numerous examples of exile and divorce that provide context. The Russian Romanovs, for instance, faced exile following the revolution, and various royal families navigated marriages and divorces that influenced their political futures. These stories illustrate how royal families balance personal desires with public expectations, sometimes at great cost. Exile and divorce become mechanisms to protect the institution but often leave lasting scars on the individuals involved. Understanding these historical precedents sheds light on the gravity of the ultimatum King Charles issued. It is not an isolated incident, but part of a long lineage of royal decisions aimed at preserving the monarchy's sanctity, often by sacrificing family ties. This chapter also invites reflection on how the monarchy reconciles tradition with modern values. The royal institution has survived centuries by adapting to changing societal norms, but it continues to grapple with issues of identity, loyalty, and public perception. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, their experience sits at the intersection of these forces. Their choices challenge established boundaries and provoke questions about the future direction of monarchy in an increasingly globalized and socially conscious era. As we continue, the implications of forced exile and divorce will be further examined through the lens of legal frameworks, public opinion, and the personal toll on those involved. This historical context sets the stage for understanding the profound consequences that the secret ultimatum carries for everyone affected. Another illuminating example comes from the story of King George V's cousin, the Duke of Connaught, who faced exile during World War I due to suspicions about his loyalty amid rising tensions between Britain and Germany. Though his case was less dramatic than others, it illustrates how political and national interests sometimes override familial bonds within the monarchy. Similarly, Queen Victoria's reign was punctuated by family estrangements and controversies that threatened the royal image. Her son, King Edward VII, had to navigate the complexities of marrying a woman who was considered unsuitable by court standards, revealing early signs of how personal relationships could become flashpoints in royal governance. The lessons from these historical precedents converge on a recurring theme. The monarchy functions as both a family and a political institution. Its survival depends on managing that dual identity, often through difficult compromises and painful sacrifices. This duality explains why King Charles's ultimatum to Prince Harry is more than a private family dispute. It is an act rooted in centuries of precedent, where preserving the monarchy's stability can demand the exclusion of even its own members. Adding complexity to the situation is the role of the media. From the time of Queen Victoria, the royal family has been subject to intense public scrutiny. The rise of tabloids and, more recently, social media has intensified this pressure. For Harry and Meghan, this meant their every move was dissected and debated globally, amplifying tensions within the family and influencing decisions like the ultimatum. In fact, the media's role in shaping public opinion about Meghan Markle has been widely discussed. Some view her as a modernizing force, challenging outdated royal norms. Others see her as a disruptive outsider. These polarized views have made it difficult for the royal family to navigate their relationship with the couple. Historically, the royal family has sought to maintain control over its narrative through carefully managed public relations. However, the digital age has complicated this effort, as unofficial sources, leaks, and social media campaigns often dominate the conversation. This backdrop is critical to understanding why the ultimatum was issued privately but leaked publicly. The monarchy faced a dilemma: address the issue openly and risk further scandal, or handle it discreetly and hope for reconciliation. The parallels with past royal conflicts become stark when considering the human cost. Royals who faced exile or forced separation often experienced profound loneliness, identity crises, and psychological distress. The sense of being caught between duty and selfhood is a recurring motif. Prince Harry has spoken publicly about his struggles with mental health, the pressures of royal life, and the impact of media intrusion. These personal revelations add emotional weight to the historical context, showing how the ultimatum touches on deeper wounds beyond titles and privileges. Moreover, the inclusion of Meghan Markle introduces elements of race, culture, and modern identity into the royal equation. Unlike previous royal figures who faced exile or divorce, Meghan represents a shift toward a more diverse and globalized monarchy. Her presence challenges old conventions and forces the institution to confront uncomfortable truths about inclusion and change. The resistance to this change partly explains the severity of King Charles's demand. It can be seen as an effort to stem what some perceive as a threat to the monarchy's traditional identity. This chapter would be incomplete without acknowledging the role of public opinion. Polls and surveys have shown fluctuating attitudes toward the royal family, with younger generations often expressing skepticism or indifference. The controversy surrounding Harry and Meghan has polarized opinions further, with some sympathizing with their desire for autonomy and others lamenting the perceived damage to the monarchy's reputation. How the monarchy responds to these pressures will shape its relevance in the decades to come. The ultimatum and its fallout serve as a case study in balancing tradition with modernity, authority with compassion, and private family matters with public accountability. In conclusion, the history of royal exiles and divorces offers a lens through which to view King Charles's ultimatum. It is a moment steeped in historical precedent, but uniquely shaped by contemporary realities. Understanding this context enriches our grasp of the stakes involved and prepares us to examine the unfolding consequences in greater detail. The ultimatum issued by King Charles reverberated far beyond the palace walls, profoundly affecting Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's public image and mental health. This chapter delves deeply into the consequences of the demand, exploring the psychological strain, media portrayal, and public reaction that have defined their recent years. From the moment the news of the ultimatum leaked, it intensified an already volatile media narrative surrounding the couple. For years, Harry and Meghan had been under the relentless gaze of both British tabloids and international press. Stories ranged from admiration for Meghan's humanitarian efforts to vicious rumors and unfounded accusations. This polarizing coverage exacerbated the couple's mental health struggles, creating a cycle of scrutiny and emotional distress. Mental health experts have pointed out that constant media intrusion can lead to anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Harry's candid discussions about his own mental health battles shed light on the toll of living in the public eye while grappling with personal crises. The ultimatum added a new layer of pressure, the threat of losing not only royal status but also family connections. Meghan, too, has faced immense challenges. As a biracial woman entering a historically white and tradition-bound institution, she encountered unique stressors. The negative media attention often carried undertones of racism and xenophobia, making her experience distinct from other members of the royal family. The demand for Harry to divorce her effectively made her a scapegoat for broader tensions within the monarchy. Public opinion about the couple has been sharply divided. Some see Harry and Meghan as victims of an outdated institution resistant to change, while others accuse them of disrespecting royal traditions. This division plays out across social media platforms, news outlets, and even within families. The pressure of navigating such polarized views adds to the couple's psychological burden. Harry's military background and previous philanthropic work highlight a man who values service and integrity, yet his departure from royal duties and the subsequent ultimatum forced him to redefine his identity in very public terms. He has spoken about feeling trapped by the expectations placed upon him as a royal, which the ultimatum only intensified. Meghan's transition from actress to royal figure brought its own set of challenges. The cultural adjustment, loss of privacy, and constant criticism took a toll on her well-being. Reports of her seeking professional help for mental health issues during her time as a working royal surfaced, underscoring the emotional cost of her new role. The couple's decision to step back from royal duties in 2020 was a watershed moment. It symbolized a break from tradition and a bid for autonomy, but it also exposed them to further backlash. The ultimatum from King Charles can be seen as an extension of the tensions that culminated in that decision. The psychological impact of exile, whether social, financial, or familial, cannot be underestimated. Being cut off from one's support system, traditions, and community leads to feelings of isolation and loss. For Harry, whose identity has been deeply entwined with his royal heritage, the ultimatum posed existential questions about belonging and purpose. Experts in family dynamics note that such ultimatums often exacerbate conflicts rather than resolve them. They force choices that can alienate individuals from their loved ones, making reconciliation difficult. The secrecy surrounding the ultimatum also complicated matters, leaving the public and family members alike to speculate and draw conclusions without full information. The couple's public responses, through interviews, social media, and philanthropic work, reflect a determination to assert control over their narrative. Their focus on mental health advocacy, racial justice, and humanitarian causes serves both as a coping mechanism and a way to redefine their public image beyond the royal framework. The global response to their story has been mixed but generally empathetic in many circles, especially among younger and more progressive audiences. They have become symbols of resilience and modernity to some, while remaining controversial figures to others. Moreover, the impact on their children adds another dimension. The ultimatum's implications extend to their family unit, raising questions about identity, protection, and future royal affiliations. The couple's efforts to shield their children from media scrutiny and royal pressures highlight the ongoing emotional stakes. As the public watches this unfolding drama, it also raises broader questions about the role of monarchy in contemporary society. How does an institution steeped in centuries of tradition adapt to the personal needs and freedoms of its members? How much should public figures sacrifice for the sake of duty? And what happens when private family conflicts become global spectacles? This chapter underscores that the ultimatum is not just a royal decision, but a deeply personal crisis that challenges notions of loyalty, identity, and mental health. The toll on Harry and Meghan offers a window into the human side of monarchy, a reminder that beneath the crowns and titles are individuals grappling with love, loss, and the quest for self-determination. The royal family's handling of the ultimatum issued to Prince Harry was a masterclass in crisis management, combining traditional discretion with modern media tactics. This chapter examines how the monarchy's communication teams and senior members responded to the delicate situation and sought to shape public perception amid swirling speculation. From the outset, the palace understood the need to maintain a united front. The monarchy's brand relies heavily on stability and continuity, and any sign of internal discord threatens its image. Thus, the initial official statement about the ultimatum was carefully worded, emphasizing respect for privacy while acknowledging the gravity of the family's internal discussions. Behind the scenes, royal aides and communications advisors worked around the clock to manage the narrative. They engaged with trusted media outlets to provide selective information, hoping to quell rumors and contain the fallout. This strategy reflected lessons learned from past controversies, where uncontrolled leaks led to damaging headlines and public backlash. One significant challenge was balancing transparency with confidentiality. The royal family operates within a tradition of discretion, often avoiding direct public confrontation. However, in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles, silence can be interpreted as evasion or guilt. The palace had to navigate this tightrope carefully. Senior royal members played crucial roles in shaping the response. King Charles, as the head of the family, was advised to maintain a tone of authority tempered with compassion. His public appearances and speeches during this period subtly reinforced themes of unity and duty, reminding audiences of the monarchy's enduring role. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth II's legacy cast a long shadow over the response. Though she passed before the ultimatum became public knowledge, her approach to managing family crises, favoring private resolution over public spectacle, influenced how the current generation handled the situation. The communications team also coordinated with other institutions linked to the monarchy, such as the Church of England and the government's Ministry of Justice, to align messaging and legal considerations. This coordination was essential given the political implications of royal titles and privileges. In addition to official channels, the palace engaged in damage control through unofficial or semi-official means. Leaks to sympathetic journalists, opinion pieces penned by royal experts, and carefully timed interviews helped steer the conversation away from the most damaging interpretations. For example, a series of interviews with close confidants highlighted the personal anguish felt by all parties, framing the ultimatum as a last resort rather than a punitive measure. These narratives aim to humanize King Charles and present him as a leader forced into difficult decisions for the good of the institution. Social media monitoring became a vital tool during this period. The royal communications team tracked public sentiment, identified misinformation, and responded where appropriate. They also launched digital campaigns to promote positive stories about the monarchy's charitable work and modernization efforts, attempting to counterbalance negative press. Nevertheless, the strategy faced limitations. The leak of the ultimatum itself demonstrated vulnerabilities in controlling information flow. Competing media outlets published divergent versions of the story, some sensationalizing the conflict for clicks and ratings. The public relations approach had to adapt quickly to shifting narratives. When Harry and Meghan spoke out publicly, through interviews and social media posts, the palace's strategy shifted to damage limitation, emphasizing respect for personal privacy while reiterating the importance of family unity. Legal considerations also played a role. The use of royal titles and the couple's financial arrangements became subjects of intense scrutiny. The palace worked closely with legal advisors to manage these issues, ensuring compliance with royal protocols while responding to public concerns. Internally, the royal family faced challenges in managing relationships among members. The ultimatum strained bonds not only between Harry and Charles but also among other siblings and cousins. Managing these personal dynamics required delicate negotiation and, at times, mediation by senior figures. The family's response also included efforts to reinforce its relevance in a changing world. Initiatives highlighting environmental advocacy, community engagement, and mental health awareness were amplified to remind the public of the monarchy's continuing social role. Despite these efforts, critics accused the palace of being reactive rather than proactive, pointing to moments of silence and ambiguous statements as signs of weakness. Some commentators argued that the royal family's insistence on secrecy fueled speculation and mistrust. In this context, the role of royal biographers and commentators became significant. Their books, documentaries, and articles shaped public understanding, sometimes reinforcing the palace's preferred narratives, other times challenging them. The palace had to monitor these outputs carefully. The response also involved managing international perceptions. Given Harry and Meghan's relocation to the United States and their global media presence, the palace had to consider how the story played out across different cultures and media landscapes. To engage younger audiences, the royal family expanded its presence on digital platforms, using short videos, podcasts, and social media posts to tell stories that emphasize relatability and modernity. Ultimately, the royal family's response was a balancing act between tradition and innovation, privacy and transparency, authority and empathy. It sought to preserve the institution's dignity while acknowledging the human realities behind the headlines. This chapter highlights that the monarchy's public relations strategy is not merely about image management, but a crucial part of its survival in an era of unprecedented scrutiny and rapid information flow. The ultimatum issued by King Charles to Prince Harry carries profound political and legal implications that ripple far beyond the confines of the royal family. This chapter unpacks the complex legal frameworks, constitutional principles, and political consequences involved in such a dramatic move. At its core, the British monarchy is governed not only by centuries of tradition but also by a complex interplay of constitutional law, statutes, and precedent. The status and privileges of royal family members are intricately tied to legislation, including the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, the Succession to the Crown Act of 2013, and various statutes governing titles and financial arrangements. When King Charles demanded that Harry divorce Meghan or face exile, it implicitly challenged established legal conventions. The royal family's power to strip titles or privileges, while historically significant, is bound by both formal legal constraints and political considerations. Such a decision must navigate parliamentary oversight, public opinion, and the delicate balance of power within the United Kingdom's constitutional monarchy. The legal mechanisms behind title revocation involve formal processes overseen by the Crown Office and influenced by advice from government ministers. Removing a title such as Duke of Sussex or revoking privileges related to royal patronage requires not only royal assent but also parliamentary sanction in certain cases. This raises questions about the limits of the monarch's authority. While King Charles, as sovereign, holds significant personal power within the monarchy, modern constitutional principles emphasize that royal powers are exercised on ministerial advice and within the framework of democratic governance. Politically, the ultimatum ignited debates within Parliament and among political commentators. Some saw it as a necessary step to uphold the integrity of the monarchy, while others criticized it as an overreach of monarchical authority into private family matters. The involvement of the House of Lords and Commons in any changes to royal status underscores the monarchy's symbolic and practical integration with the British state. Legal experts analyzed the precedent such a move would set and the potential for constitutional crisis if contested. Moreover, the political context surrounding the ultimatum includes the evolving role of the monarchy in the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth realms. Discussions about monarchy reform, republicanism, and the future of royal finances have intensified in recent years, making this a flashpoint in broader constitutional debates. The financial dimension is particularly significant. Royal funding streams, such as the sovereign grant, Duchy of Cornwall revenues, and private wealth are governed by rules linking them to official duties and status. Exiling or stripping Harry of titles affects his eligibility for certain income and privileges, raising legal questions about contracts, rights, and entitlements. Internationally, the political implications extend to the Commonwealth countries where the British monarch remains head of state. How these realms respond to changes in royal status can have diplomatic and constitutional consequences, potentially influencing their own debates on monarchy and governance. The ultimatum also highlighted the role of royal patronages and charitable foundations. Many members of the royal family hold patronages that support various causes. Removing Harry from these roles affects not just his status but also the organizations involved. Legal and political discussions arose about the transfer or dissolution of such patronages. Additionally, privacy laws and media regulations came into focus as the story unfolded. The balance between freedom of the press and protection from intrusive reporting remains contentious, especially when involving high-profile figures like Harry and Meghan. Legal scholars debated whether the ultimatum could be challenged in courts, considering arguments around contractual obligations, human rights, and freedom of association. The unprecedented nature of the demand opened new legal questions about the rights of royal family members versus the powers of the monarch. The political fallout also involved public reactions. Polls indicated varying levels of support for the monarchy and opinions on Harry and Meghan's role, influencing how politicians in the palace navigated the situation. Some politicians called for greater transparency and reforms to reduce the monarchy's political influence, citing the ultimatum as evidence of the need for modernization. Others defended the monarchy as a stabilizing institution vital to national identity. The chapter further explores the role of the media in shaping political narratives, with newspapers, television programs, and online platforms offering competing interpretations and fueling public discourse. In summary, the ultimatum is not just a family matter, but a complex political and legal event with far-reaching implications. It challenges the boundaries of monarchical authority, tests constitutional principles, and sparks debates about the future of the British monarchy. Understanding these dimensions is essential to grasp the full impact of King Charles's decision and its place within the evolving landscape of constitutional monarchy in the 21st century. The moment news broke about King Charles's ultimatum to Prince Harry to divorce Meghan Markle or face exile from the royal family, it triggered a tidal wave of international reactions and extensive media coverage. This chapter explores how the global press, political figures, and the public around the world responded to one of the most dramatic episodes in modern royal history. From the outset, the story captivated audiences far beyond the United Kingdom. Media outlets across continents rushed to cover every detail, offering perspectives shaped by their cultural contexts and political climates. The royal family, as an institution embedded in history and global affairs, commands significant international interest, and this crisis amplified that fascination. In the United States, where Harry and Meghan have resettled, the media response was particularly intense and often sympathetic to the couple. Major news networks, tabloids, and online platforms debated the fairness of the ultimatum and questioned King Charles's motives. Opinion pieces ranged from viewing the move as a firm but necessary action to protect the monarchy's integrity to seeing it as an unfair punishment driven by internal family strife. American celebrities and public figures weighed in, reflecting the deep connection between Meghan's Hollywood background and American cultural influence. Some voiced support for Harry and Meghan's right to forge their own path, criticizing the British monarchy's rigidity. In contrast, British media offered a more varied but often critical lens. Traditional outlets loyal to the monarchy emphasized the need for discipline and respect for royal traditions, framing the ultimatum as a difficult but justified step. Tabloid newspapers, however, fueled sensationalism, focusing on personal drama and speculation about behind-the-scenes conflicts. The media landscape in Commonwealth countries presented an intriguing mix of loyalty and critique. Nations such as Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, where the Queen remains head of state, displayed divided reactions. Some commentators expressed concern about the monarchy's future relevance, while others defended it as a symbol of stability. In countries with Republican sentiments, the ultimatum fueled ongoing debates about constitutional reform and the role of the monarchy. Political leaders and activists seized the moment to call for referenda or legislative changes to reduce royal influence. Social media amplified these discussions, with platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok providing spaces for supporters and critics alike. Hashtags related to the ultimatum trended globally, and viral videos and memes added a new dimension to public engagement. International press agencies also highlighted the broader implications of the crisis, including questions about the evolving nature of monarchy, media freedom, and the intersection of private lives with public duties. The role of global media giants such as the BBC, CNN, and Reuters was pivotal in shaping the narrative. Their coverage combined breaking news updates with in-depth analysis, interviews with experts, and historical context, helping audiences understand the significance of the events. Furthermore, the media's treatment of Meghan Markle's ethnicity and American identity sparked conversations about race, identity, and cultural differences within royal discourse. Some commentators argued that Meghan's outsider status influenced both the family's stance and public reactions. The chapter also examines how international governments responded, from official statements to diplomatic protocols. While most expressed respect for the UK's internal affairs, subtle signals and communications hinted at varying degrees of concern or support. In summary, the international reactions and media coverage of the ultimatum reveal the monarchy's global impact and the complex ways in which this crisis resonated across borders. Understanding these perspectives is crucial to appreciating the full scope of the story and its consequences. The ultimatum issued by King Charles was not just a headline-grabbing political event. It struck deeply at the heart of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's personal lives. This chapter delves into the emotional, psychological, and relational effects that such a public and severe demand has had on the couple. For Harry and Meghan, who had already navigated intense scrutiny and multiple conflicts with the royal establishment, the ultimatum represented a pivotal and painful moment. It was not merely a call to end their marriage, but a demand that threatened their identity, their future, and their very place within the family and public life. The couple's history is marked by resilience amid challenges. From their initial courtship, heavily covered by global media, to their subsequent decision to step back from royal duties, they have faced extraordinary pressure. This latest demand from King Charles raised the stakes to an unprecedented level. Psychologists and mental health experts who have studied the stresses faced by public figures emphasize how public shaming or coercive ultimatums can exacerbate anxiety, depression, and feelings of isolation. For Harry and Meghan, the demand likely triggered profound emotional turmoil, considering their previous struggles with mental health. Their personal relationship, once celebrated as a modern fairy tale, became the subject of speculation and intense public commentary. The ultimatum forced them to confront not only the political and familial consequences but also the strain on their marriage itself. Interviews and public statements from the couple in the wake of the ultimatum reveal their determination to stand united despite the pressures. Their commitment to one another became a focal point for supporters worldwide who saw them as symbols of love and resilience against an archaic institution. At the same time, the strain on their wider family relationships cannot be underestimated. The division within the royal family deepened, with reports of tension between Harry and other senior royals escalating. Such familial discord often brings a heavy emotional burden, compounded by the relentless media spotlight. The ultimatum also impacted their roles as parents. The couple had to consider the implications not only for themselves but for their children, navigating complex questions about identity, protection, and future prospects within or outside the royal framework. Support networks, including close friends, counselors, and allies, played a crucial role in helping the couple manage the crisis. The chapter explores how such networks provide essential emotional support during times of intense personal and public conflict. Moreover, the couple's ongoing advocacy work and public appearances were affected. The pressure to maintain a public image while dealing with private pain created a challenging balancing act. Their philanthropic initiatives and engagement with social causes became both an outlet and a platform to assert their agency. The chapter also reflects on the broader theme of personal autonomy versus institutional expectation, highlighting how Harry and Meghan's experience embodies the tension between individual desires and traditional roles. In conclusion, the personal impact of King Charles's ultimatum on Harry and Meghan is profound and multifaceted. It touches on emotional well-being, family dynamics, personal identity, and public responsibility, illustrating the human cost behind royal headlines. When King Charles issued the ultimatum to Prince Harry, the ripple effects were felt throughout the entire royal family. This chapter takes a deep dive into how the different members of the family reacted, the internal dynamics that shifted, and the ways in which the institution attempted to manage the fallout. The royal family operates both as a public institution and a private network of relationships, often complicated by decades of history, tradition, and personal rivalries. The ultimatum was a stress test for these internal bonds, exposing underlying tensions while also catalyzing new alliances and fractures. Immediately after the announcement, palace insiders reported a flurry of private meetings. Senior royals gathered to discuss the implications and formulate a coordinated response. This included not only King Charles and the Prince of Wales, but also Queen Consort Camilla, Prince William, and other key figures such as Prince Andrew and Princess Anne. The reactions varied widely. Some family members were said to fully support the king's decision, viewing it as necessary to preserve the monarchy's dignity and unity. Others expressed concerns about the public perception and the potential damage to family cohesion. Prince William, long seen as the heir apparent after King Charles, was reportedly conflicted. While he maintained a stance of loyalty to the monarch, sources revealed a complex personal relationship with Harry that influenced his position. This division between the brothers added another layer to the unfolding drama. The role of Queen Consort Camilla was also significant. As a stabilizing figure within the palace, she was involved in advising the king and managing communication strategies aimed at minimizing public backlash. Behind the scenes, the family employed professional mediators and counselors to attempt to bridge divides. However, the deep emotional wounds and differing priorities made reconciliation challenging. The internal dynamics were further complicated by the role of other extended family members and advisors. Some were seen as peacemakers, while others were accused of exacerbating conflicts through leaks or strategic communications to the press. Publicly, the royal family sought to project unity and resolve. Carefully crafted statements emphasized respect for personal decisions, but underscored the importance of upholding royal traditions and responsibilities. The palace communications team ramped up efforts to control the narrative, using a combination of traditional media briefings and discreet outreach to key journalists. This approach aimed to shape public opinion and protect the monarchy's image amidst swirling rumors and speculation. The chapter also explores the psychological toll on the royal family members, many of whom must balance personal loyalties with institutional duties under intense media scrutiny. Moreover, the evolving roles of younger royals, such as Prince George and Princess Charlotte, are considered within the broader family dynamic. Their upbringing and future roles became a symbolic focal point in discussions about the monarchy's continuity. The impact of the ultimatum on royal staff, including aides, advisors, and security personnel, is also examined. The heightened tensions affected daily operations and required increased discretion and professionalism. Finally, the chapter reflects on how the royal family's response fits into the historical pattern of managing crises, weighing the effectiveness of their strategies against the unprecedented nature of this particular challenge. In summary, the internal response to King Charles's ultimatum reveals a complex web of loyalty, conflict, strategy, and emotion. The royal family's ability to navigate this crisis will significantly influence both their personal relationships and the institution's future stability. The public's response to King Charles's ultimatum sent shockwaves through social media platforms and street conversations alike. This chapter examines how ordinary people across the globe reacted, expressed opinions, and influenced the ongoing discourse about the royal family's most dramatic crisis in decades. Social media emerged as the primary battleground for debates, with Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and newer platforms like TikTok flooding with reactions. Hashtags related to the ultimatum trended internationally, showing the depth of engagement and the diversity of viewpoints. Some segments of the public viewed King Charles's decision as an assertion of necessary discipline, applauding his efforts to maintain royal dignity and uphold tradition. These supporters often cited the importance of loyalty, respect for the monarchy's rules, and the preservation of its reputation. On the other side, many expressed sympathy for Harry and Meghan, framing the ultimatum as harsh, unfair, and emblematic of an outdated institution unwilling to embrace change. These voices were especially loud among younger generations and advocates for modernization and transparency. Polls conducted in the UK and other Commonwealth countries reflected this divide, showing a significant portion of the population uncertain or critical of the monarchy's handling of the situation. Questions arose about the relevance and role of the monarchy in contemporary society. Social media influencers, celebrities, and activists contributed to shaping public opinion. Some launched campaigns supporting Harry and Meghan, emphasizing themes of love, personal freedom, and resistance to institutional pressure. Conversely, commentators defending the monarchy highlighted respect for duty and the importance of tradition and national identity. The polarization often mirrored broader societal debates about authority, privilege, and change. Memes, viral videos, and satirical commentary injected humor and creativity into the discourse, making the topic accessible and engaging for a wider audience. This informal communication style sometimes clashed with the solemnity of the royal narrative, creating a dynamic and unpredictable conversation space.